Track 2. So we're good. We're good. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to a wonderful, humid evening in Santa Monica. So if you know anything about the Midwest, Florida, and other places, we're not there, but it feels that way. So how y'all doing? Just give me a holler out. Everybody okay? Yeah, all right. I'm Karen Gunn, and this is
Julie Russ.
all right. You want to start?
Yeah.
Video.
Okay. Well, we are going to be your tour guides for the evening. And welcome. First, I'm going to take an exhale, invite you all to do the same. We're gathering. Here we are. You know what? There are so many things you could all be doing with your time and your attention, and we are really grateful that you're here. So thank you. Let me start with thank you for being here. It is hot, and we're all feeling the heat on every level in our community and the world we're in. So we're really delighted to have you here. We hope that tonight you'll join us in some learning. We hope you'll be provoked. We hope you'll be inspired to act. And we hope you'll continue to be thinking about what these topics that we're going to talk about mean in your family, in your community, and in the big world. Online, we have people who are joining us from around the region, and we actually have a couple of colleagues from the island of Puerto Rico. So shout out to Allie if you're on, and folks that are really interested in what we're doing here in Santa Monica. Our virtual participants will join us for the first hour or so, and then those of us in the room will be in breakout sessions. So first, what we want to do is make sure you know what we're doing tonight. You have programs, and there's basically 3 parts to what we're doing. The first part is your tour guides will orient you a little bit. That's Karen and me. And then we'll hear from 2 speakers who are local experts to tell us about what they know about the topic of truth decay and misinformation and practices that we can all incorporate. And then finally, those of you in the room will do breakout groups where you'll have some time to discuss. There's some index cards around so you can jot down notes to take into those discussions. In addition, I guess I want to start with just a few quick thank yous and kind of who's in the room. This event is being brought to you by the Santa Monica Human Relations Council. We'll tell you a little bit more about us, and many board members are in the room. We thank you. We thank you for the work you're doing, and we really thank our 2 part-time staff, Catalina Langen and Lizeth Antonio, who have made this possible. We're about partnerships. So a couple months ago, when we decided we wanted to do this event, we reached out to our colleagues here at 18th Street Art Center. For those of you who haven't been here, welcome on behalf of 18th and Michael, who's running around and keeping us cool. And we're really delighted to be hosted by 18th Street Arts. So thank you to Michael and Jan and the team here. As one of our board members reminds us, because we like everybody, are trying to sort of do the good work, and sometimes we say things like no money, no mission. So I want to say we're really grateful to our event sponsors, and they're listed here in the program, and I invite you to take a look. We also have a QR code in the program, which lets you know where you can donate so that we can do more events like this. So thank you, event sponsors. And community facilitators. There's also a list of about 10 community facilitators who will be leading the breakout groups. Thank you, thank you. These are great partners and colleagues. Some of them are board members and other community leaders. We really appreciate what you're doing. VIPs and elected officials. Everybody's a VIP. Let me start with that. So I want to start there. I also want to say we're expecting to have our mayor join us. I don't think she's here yet. Our mayor pro tem, Carolyn Tarosis, is in the back, and our council member, Barry Snell. We have former Mayor Judy Abdo here, and I believe they're online. We have some other elected officials, past and present. So thank you all. And did I miss any elected officials? Hopefully not. Michael Rich, who is the former CEO of Rand Corporation, lives here in Santa Monica, should be joining us later. His work when he was the CEO of Rand really framed this concept of truth decay, and we're really delighted to have Michael's partnership, and we want to acknowledge the Rand Corporation. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Karen so you can hear a little more about what's next.
Thanks, Julie. And just to be, make sure everyone knows, we are usually the DJs for gatherings like this, but in this case, we're also the co-chairs of the Human Relations Council, so we're acting officially today. So interpretation is available, and is there anyone sitting here in the room who needs it? Please raise your hand. Okay, and we've got that covered, and folks, in Espanol. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we also have that available for those folks that are online. The restrooms are right here in this hallway. There are 2 of them. If you need them, food and trash, you know where that is. I shouldn't say that together, but there's a trash can and there's great food. Kale to kale, okay? A lot of kale. Parking has already been talked about, and is there anything else I've forgotten?
I don't think so.
Yeah, beside an air conditioner. Okay, so let me see if I can do all this before I melt. The big question is oftentimes, what do we mean by truth decay? And Michael Rich and his co-author, Jennifer Kavanaugh, really laid it out for us. Michael Rich was the CEO of Rand Corporation. The book is extremely informative. It is well written. It is dense. By that I mean, it is very small words and no space between the lines. So you want to punish your children? That might be what you might try. So, but to get serious about it, truth decay is defined as the diminishing role of facts, data analysis, and expertise in public life. In other words, in our politics, our law, our environment, our civic and civil discourse, our education. As a psychologist, I would say it also is challenging empirical science that is arrived at through investigations. And I won't belabor what has occurred in the last 4 or 5 days, because I imagine the cows would come home before I'd get finished, and you all already know. So what we've learned is that there are trends. So I want to talk real quickly about what are some of the trends. Increased disagreement about facts. Okay, all right, just in case you missed that. There is a blurring of the line between fact and opinion. And that really is important when you talk about going into a news program, and then what you realize, you're getting a lot of opinions along with what's the truthiness of what actually has occurred. There's increasing influence of opinion over fact. So people are going to the bank, they're spending their money, they're making choices, they're deciding about schools and everything else based on people's opinion. And there is a declining trust in institutions as sources of factual information. Does it look like I'm melting? Trust me, I am. The drivers of truth decay are important as well. They're propelled by a number of things, which Rand researchers have found to include how we think. So how we, it won't make a difference, but thank you. It is about how we use this little noodle up here, this 3.5 pound thing, and how it sometimes works even when we're not consciously controlling it, that there are some limitations. Distractions affect us. Our memory is affected by the capacity of this thing. So we have a brain and we have a mind, and it's getting affected. Thank you, Michael. By all of those factors. I really must look like I'm about to fall. There's also changes in the information ecosystem. And we all know about that, where we get our information, if we're getting snippets or if we're getting in-depth kinds of information. Is it TikTok? Is it IG? Is it X? Is it Blue Sky? Is it blah, 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 blah? So it's all those things, folks. And we also have our own echo chamber. And we need to remember that. And we need to step out of it, I would humbly suggest, just to kind of check, just to hear some alternate views. And then if you come back and say, I still think the same thing, it will be after you've offered yourself the opportunity to hear multiple perspectives. We get locked in. I get locked in. It's very easy. So that's another thought. We are polarized politically. We are polarized at a global level, at a national level, and dare I say, on some days here in Santa Monica, at a local level. And the local part is what we really want everyone to think about, to drill down to, so that when you walk out of here, you're a little smarter than when you walked in. And I'm not suggesting that you weren't when you came, but this is about learning and hearing from some wonderful experts that are going to tell you some stuff that should be thought-provoking. I'm going to turn it to Julie. Thank you for saving my life.
Okay. Woo, feels good. So, why are we doing this? Well, the HRC, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, that's right. Um, we have hosted this dialogue series annually for the past 3 years, and unfortunately, things are just getting harder. And the resonance of the topic and the relevance is stronger than ever. So our mission as the HRC is centered on supporting a respectful and just community through education, advocacy, and local action. Just that, but we're like a volunteer group trying to make that happen. And, part of what we know is that the things that matter most to us, which includes several advocacy areas from immigration and deportation, hate crimes, affordable housing, homelessness, to name a few. These are big issues. And we know that truth decay impacts how we understand these issues, how we relate to them, and what we do about them. We also understand that we need to build trust. And, being in a diverse, multiracial, ever evolving society is challenging. And in order to really be whole and thrive in that, we really do understand that we've got to communicate. We've got to think about things like both belonging and bridging. Belonging, how we kind of connect with the people that are most in our lives, and bridging, how we reach across. This is really hard. This is the work of being in community. So practicing democracy is something we all need to take seriously and learn together how to really tackle. We learned in one of our previous sessions from Dr. Ray Block, who is RAND's political scientist and in the role of chair of this concept of countering truth decay. We learned about the importance of the so-called meso level or civic level of our community. And those are the organizations like the HRC, like the League of Women Voters, like the Interfaith Council, like so many others that need to really come together and create the social infrastructure so that we can do this work, because it doesn't just happen. We need to work to make it happen. So we really feel like that's why we're hosting this event tonight. And we're really lucky to be joined by several local leaders. And I'm going to start by introducing Carlo Cabanilla and tell you a little bit about him. You can read more about him in the program. And Carlo, I'm just going to say, while bringing him up, is a first-generation Filipino-American immigrant. He's a tech entrepreneur, and he's a local community gatherer. His technical expertise combined with his grassroots experience brings really fresh insights and skills to this topic. Most recently, Carlo founded a group here in Santa Monica called Bahala, and they're a civic organization whose mission is to break down the invisible walls that divide us in our daily lives. We're really grateful to have Carlo here, and I welcome you.
Oh, I'm good. Oh, I got a clicker. Sweet. Hi. Thank you for the introduction. Happy to be here. Is this okay? So I'm Carlo Cabanillia, as Willie said. My talk is called Our Fractured Reality. And my talk is called Our Fractured Reality. And I'm going to show some examples of the state of the art of how misinformation is spread and raise your awareness on how to be more resistant to misinformation and show some next steps that you could take to improve our information environment. So jumping right in, day in the life of 2025. Has anyone ever received a shocking Facebook post from a friend? Yes, yeah. So this one is a picture of the European leaders waiting for Trump to get off the phone with Vladimir Putin. They're waiting in the hallway. They look really sad. It's shocking and enraging, but it kind of jives with your preconceptions that Trump is a jerk and he would make these important leaders wait. And if you dig into the account, you see there's he has 200,000 followers, so it's pretty popular. It's probably legit. You're not sure if it's true, but you share it with some friends and family because you just kind of want to connect with them on this interesting and also enraging topic. But if a friend sent this to me as an upstanding citizen of the world, I could model critical thinking to them by asking, "Where did you get this from?" And go through my thought process and thinking about it, and let's look at closely together. So I don't know if you could see this. So there's feet here next to Macron's feet. There's no body up there. So turns out this image is actually AI generated. So before I get into more, I want to talk about myself and why you should listen to me. So I spent the last 20 years developing data systems and helping people of various technical levels understand those systems. I worked with the New York City Department of Ed to build a student data warehouse and collaborative knowledge base for New York City teachers. And I built a startup called Datadog. And in my 6 years there, I scaled the company from 3 people to 300 people from every experience level and cultural background. And currently I'm working on this organization called Bahala, as Julie introduced. We have weekly gatherings. We try to spread positive news and local events and partner with local organizations like HRC. And I have a special interest in teaching everyday people about digital literacy and how they can navigate the current marketplace of software and AI to help themselves get ahead. So just to demystify what I'm talking about when I talk about AI, I'm sure you've all done a Google search. So if you're using Google, you're already using AI. And here, I asked it, Google AI summary incorrect, and it helpfully gave me how and why Google AI summaries might be incorrect. So it's been widely reported to provide incorrect, misleading, and even dangerous information. Thanks, Google. But that's not too different from the regular web, the general web, right? But it turns out Google gets it wrong in very specific ways. And it's not specific to Google, it's just specific to how they're using AI. So they give dangerous advice. misleading facts, and fabricated information. Sounds like Truth Decay to me. But instead of coming from friends or social media or websites, the source seems like it's Google, which is usually a fairly trusted and reputable brand. So why does it get it wrong? Turns out there's some specific reasons that Google's AI summaries get it wrong. It can misinterpret your queries, like it doesn't know what you're asking. The source material could be low quality. It's only pulling what's there on the web. So if that's low quality, then that's what you're going to get. And it could give you what the industry calls hallucinations. And a hallucination is basically a made up answer due to kind of a quirk on how AI is trained. When AI doesn't know an answer, just makes it up. So I have this video. I hope it works from a special guest.
Listen to me now. I'm trying to tell you about this incredible machine called Comfy UI. And believe me, this is not some kindergarten cop software. This is the real deal. You see this beautiful interface here, these nodes, these connections. This is like building the perfect physique, but for artificial intelligence. Every node is like a muscle group. You connect them right, you get maximum results. Get it wrong, well, hasta la vista, baby.
So that was completely AI generated, the video and the voice. Raise your hand if you had to pause to think if it was real or not. Raise your hand if you're still thinking. So colloquially, it's known as a deepfake. This video is the current state of the art in terms of video and audio generation. And there's cloud-based AI tools that have guardrails from impersonating celebrities, but there's open source models where you can just download it on your own PC or work on any retail PC at home. Okay, so does anyone recognize this influencer? No? Turns out she's not real. She doesn't exist. So AI tools can generate this kind of consistent person, consistent face in various situations, and malicious actors have already used it to scam people on social media. And there's a particularly sad example. I'm not going to go into it, but it's linked in the slides. So when you get it at home, you can go through it. So now what? It's all very scary. I'm scared. Now we can take a breath and remember that we're here together in community and we're safe. And we can think about some cognitive biases we have to give ourselves some self-awareness on how these new forms of misinformation tap into some very old and well-researched aspects of our human brains. There's more factors to cognitive, there's other cognitive biases and there are other factors to misinformation, but I just want to highlight a few. The first one is reiteration effect. Oh. Oh no. Video doesn't work. But basically, it's pans and there's like hundreds of devices connected to several people's computers. So this is a bot farm and it's using software automation, not even AI, to boost the repetition of misinformation, and it targets people's reiteration effect bias. So reiteration effect is the tendency to believe false information to be correct after repeated exposure. So this is a Vietnamese company. They charge $10 a month per device, and each device can be programmed to post, comment, like, follow, any way you want. This is not the only service that does this, and you can even set up your own home rig. And so what is the content that these customers post? So I found this tweet that shares a true fact. Greg Abbott signed the Texas redistricting bill to give the Republicans 5 additional House seats, but it's coupled with the misinformation of getting rid of Jasmine Crockett's House seat. She still retains her seat and her district is still heavily Democrat. And you'll notice a typo in the tweet, Jasmine. And if you do a search, a bunch of other instances of it shows up. They're different accounts and they're not retweets. So it's a pretty obvious tell that the author of the content was the same. And the fact that this misinformation is repeated so many times and it tries to trigger your reiteration effect. On close examination, it's fairly easy to tell that it's not a trustworthy source, but number one, most people don't examine closely. And number two, another cognitive error that happens in our brain is source confusion. When people mix up the details from different sources or misattribute a memory. So even if you do recognize that it's an untrustworthy source, because of this quirk of our brains, we could still end up believing that the false content. The next bias I want to talk about is availability bias. This is a photo from the recent LA protests of the National Guard coming here. So the availability bias, it leads us to judge how likely or important something is based on how easily we can recall examples. So dramatic misinformation becomes more memorable and thus seems more credible than it actually is. This is a very dramatic photo. It could easily be framed as Mexican migrants invading Los Angeles and causing destruction, and therefore LA requiring the National Guard to step in, when in actuality, it was a protest against the National Guard occupation. So when the media mentions that LA is a war zone, if you don't live here, you've seen these photos, it's very easy to believe that all of LA is like this. Who here has gotten texts from their out-of-state loved ones after these protests? My sister always sends me. Very dramatic, very easy to recall, and easy to misattribute. So the last cognitive bias I wanted to talk about is confirmation bias. So this quote, Americans are dissatisfied of the dramatic decline in standard of living. It is these sentiments that should be exploited. This quote is from the strategy docs of the Russian-sponsored misinformation operation that the Justice Department in 2024 disrupted. So confirmation bias is the human tendency to seek out and give more weight to information that confirms our existing beliefs while dismissing contradictory evidence. It's this filter bubble that you always hear about. So here, the Russian misinformation factory is tapping into our existing belief that the standard of living is declining, that our cities are in chaos, that the American dream is dying. And this misinformation factory is constantly churning out content with inflammatory imagery and toxic words, triggering a reiteration effect and availability bias. And it comes as no surprise that many, many Americans accept the misinformation that accompanies this medium. Our neighbors who look different are our enemies. Our colleagues who believe slightly different than us are to blame. And this strong man has all the answers to all these problems. So how do we fight back? We can fight back with education and not just teaching the content. Our neighbor who looks different is not actually our enemy, but teaching the facts, of teaching how to think about the facts. Where did I receive that information and how trustworthy is the source? And it's my belief that we can equip ourselves and our children to handle this modern, low trust information environment. I just wanted to show how Europe handles it. I'm not going to go into all this, but basically they have a pretty comprehensive policy framework on how to get digital literacy education into the classrooms and how to train teachers on how to do this. Obviously, Europe has suffered their own flavor of misinformation with Brexit and all that. But at least they have a coordinated effort to teach them media literacy. And California has their own, but it's not quite as comprehensive. So we can also fight back with tools to minimize the inadvertent spread of misinformation. And I've included many of them in the appendix of this presentation, but I just wanted to highlight a cool one. So it's called Notebook LM. It's also by Google. So rather than relying on AI tools to judge what are the best sources of information for your research, you can upload your own sources to Notebook LM, sources that you deem as trustworthy, because at the end of the day, there's no substitute for human judgment. So here I put in city council written public comments from the past year and the city council budget and the annual police safety report. And you can ask it interesting things about the public's perception of public safety and the state of money spent and the direction that safety stats are going. And with each answer, it actually links back to exactly where in your sources it got that from. So, but why does this all matter? Why does this abundance of misinformation matter? Why should we even care about fighting it? Besides, the obvious, saving our democracy. You know, this climate of misinformation aims to isolate and divide us all when we're facing ever more isolation and loneliness. And I believe we just want to feel connected again. And I wanted to leave you with a quote I found inspiring from this person called Billy Ray. He's an expert in political messaging, and he recently took the pulse of the American public after the 2024 election.
The thing that people are longing for is community. You see it in poll after poll. They've been told for 9 years that they have to hate their neighbors over politics, and they're exhausted. They're over it. When the fact is that what people really want is they want to get back to a time when they were thinking about bake sales and Little League and looking after each other's kids. They want to know that if they're on the side of the road with a flat tire, that a neighbor is going to pull over without first checking to see if their bumper stickers match yours. People just want community. They want to get their neighbors back.
Thank you for listening. So you can sign up for Bahala's newsletter here and learn more and see our talk, and you'll get it all.
Okay, I've turned the lights off. That's going to help me a lot. Thank you, community. So before I introduce the next speaker, I do want to remind us, we are a community sitting in this room, and I hope when you walk out, you will maintain that connection with us. And in a way, Truth Decay is about connecting what we can do to our commitment that I believe everyone in here has to social justice. It is imperative. It is the mission of the Human Relations Council to deal with that. And as you think about social justice, think about it just like you did with me as I was standing here the first time around, because you gave me your attention because you were interested. As you saw me sweat, you became concerned. That concern led to some empathy. And my brother over here gave me some Kleenex. So this is what it's all about. It's about help. It's about understanding. It's about appreciating the importance, the imperative of wading through all of the stuff, caca, and getting to the truth. Our next speaker, I'm really pleased to introduce, is Julia Storm. Julia is a digital media wellness educator and a screen time coach. Screen time coach. When do we have that? We have it because our context requires it at this moment, and particularly for people who care about folks, it's important. She is the founder of Reconnect, a whole child and whole family approach to supporting parents and kids with the challenges of growing up in this digital age. It's a challenge for all of us. We all should be embracing this. Without further ado, Ms. Julia Storm.
Hi, I'm going to remove this because I'm short and it's not going to work. Okay. Hi. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure. Just tell you a tiny bit about me. So as Karen said, I'm a digital wellness educator. Some people don't even know what that means, and that's fine because it's a relatively new thing. I kind of thought I made it up actually about 8 years ago when I started this work. But it's become really essential. And basically what I do is I work primarily with families and with children in schools to really help translate the information that's out there. And there's a lot of it on, best practices around screen use, device use, literacy, all of these factors that our kids are dealing with and our families are dealing with, and really distilling it down into something that they can use. They can sort of take tools and strategies day to day to help manage this, because there is really a huge divide between what we know and how we grew up and how our youth are growing up. But today I'm very excited to be speaking with not little kids and not just parents, although I'm going to assume some of your parents. And also, I'm really happy to be speaking with some younger adults because I think they have an important role to play. So what we're going to talk about is the role that we as adults, am I blocking people? Am I okay? Okay. The role that adults have to play, thank you, in guiding our youth in today's digital world. When we look at a picture like this doesn't even scratch the surface, right? Of what our kids are exposed to. I'm not even going to say day to day, but actually minute to minute, right? When you think about the length of content, minute to minute, how much information is coming at our kids from God knows where, right? Some of it may be useful, some of it may be good. A lot of it is trash. A lot of it is not real. A lot of it is opinion, right? A lot of it is just entertainment. And a lot of it can be really problematic too in its ideology. And these are kids who don't have fully developed brains and are exposed to all of this. And you've got, somebody being shot in the neck, and then you swipe and you've got somebody doing a funny dance, right? So how do you process that? As an adult, it's hard enough to process, but as a child, it's very, very confusing, right? So as adults, we often feel like this is overwhelming, this is frustrating, I don't know what to do here with this. How do I even communicate with somebody who's in this world so much of the time? What do we have in common? And there's two main narratives that I hear and see pretty consistently for adults in the room. The first one goes something like, this is a world I don't understand. I don't really have anything I can offer. These kids are way more tech savvy than I am. So how can I possibly help them? Wipe my hands of it. The other narrative is, this world is frightening and dangerous, and I'm not going to let my youth anywhere near this. I'm going to block it. I'm going to restrict it. I'm going to shame it. I don't want them going near it. And those are really the two main narratives that I bump up against in my work the most. And what I want to do today is I want to propose a third way. That's what I'm going to get into now. I really believe that to help our kids thrive in this digital world, what they need from all the adults around them is an ally. They don't need somebody to be fighting them on this. They need somebody to step in, stand next to them, and guide them, okay? We can't let the chaos of the online world and the overwhelm of it drown out the wisdom that we're bringing to the table. We may not be as tech savvy as some of these kids, but believe me, you're a lot more savvy than a lot of these kids, okay? You have a lot to bring to the table. Parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches, we have a critical role to play, okay? Before I jump into how we play that role, I want to give you just a little overview on what the landscape looks like for our kids. So elementary school age kids, so these are kids, say, kindergarten to 5th grade, 6th grade, depending. They average about 5 hours a day of recreational screen time, okay? And mostly for this age group, that looks like YouTube, TV shows. The main video games that they're playing are Minecraft and Roblox. Some of them play some more adult games, but on average, this is what we see the most. And 30 to 40% of kids under 13 years old are on social media. I find that really astounding. Okay. In middle and high school, it shoots way up. And any of you who do have kids have probably seen this in your own home. By the way, I have an almost 16-year-old and a 13-year-old, so I'm like drowning in it myself. They are also spending a lot of time on YouTube. YouTube is the preferred platform for pretty much all youth. TV shows, a lot of gaming on consoles, PCs, mostly Fortnite, Call of Duty, the ones that you've heard of, but there's tons of games. And 95%, so basically all teens are using social media every day and per their reporting almost constantly. So this is where they're living. What experience are they having? They're making friends. So 1 out of 3 teenagers has met a new person who they would consider a friend online, either through social media, through gaming, or through communities online. A lot of them through gaming, okay? Gaming gets a really bad rap. I wish I had a whole presentation I could do for you on gaming. That'll have to be another time. Bullying. 1 out of 6 students has experienced some form of bullying or harassment online. That's a lot of kids. Mental health. 48% of teens do believe that social media is actually harmful for their mental health. Okay, it has mostly a negative effect on kids. 70% of youth have seen real world violence on their devices, right? So not a narrative show with violence in it, but watching real world violence unfold in front of them. Last week, a lot of kids watched a horrific event immediately after it happened. And I can tell you, because I got a lot of phone calls, many of them, including my own kids, felt very traumatized by it, very traumatized. And sex. There's a lot of very early exposure to sex and sexual content, not just stuff that they're seeing unintentionally online, but also people trying to communicate with our youth, especially our young girls on social media. I see a young woman nodding vigorously to that one. Okay. Oops, sorry. I want to skip forward. But I do want to outline that there are benefits. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits, right? This is the water that our kids are swimming in. So we don't get to just, pluck them out of it and, we can wish that it didn't exist, but it does. This is where they live. And in that world, they get to explore interests, make discoveries, connect with people, connect with their peers. They can express themselves, express their creativity. They get support with their problems, answers to their questions, right? A lot of access to information. So there's a lot of amazing things and amazing gains from their time spent online. And as we know, there are a lot of harms. And they're experienced sort of simultaneously, side by side, the benefits and the harms. They kind of are 2 sides of one coin. One of the biggest, I think, is that it just eats away their free time. It's like hours and hours that could be spent either in community, with a friend, learning something tangible, practicing something, are just gone to nothingness, basically. Their motivation is lowered to do offline activities because of the ease of the entertainment, right? It's so easy to be entertained. It's so frictionless. Everything else feels like a lot of effort. And who wants to put in a lot of effort when you can just get a hit of something that feels good with no effort? They're exposed to just like extraordinary amounts of violence, profanity, racism, hypersexuality, everything that you can imagine. They're hooked because most of these apps are designed to hook us, and kids don't have that prefrontal cortex to help them pull away from it, understand the potential long-term consequences. And if we're honest, even those of us who do have a fully formed brain have a pretty hard time walking away from these devices and these apps because they are designed intentionally to hold us there, okay? And this is very insidious. They're constantly comparing themselves to everyone around them, and not just everyone around them, but everyone around the entire world. Again, my two youngest adults are vigorously nodding. I'm sure they have a lot to say on this, but the constant comparison, I think, really eats away at self-esteem and it's sort of at the ability to develop a sense of who you are outside of comparing yourself to these ideals that everyone else is putting out there. Okay. This is where we step in, guys. Instead of turning our back because we don't think we have anything to share, or instead of over-restricting, we step in as their ally. I can tell you that this works because I've done this with my own kids. What I can't tell you is that they're not on devices. They are on devices. They're on devices a lot, my children. But we have a really good connection and we're constantly in conversation about what they're doing on there, and not in a way where I'm sort of like pestering them, but it's about being inquisitive, right? So by being an ally, number one, you model what you think healthy relationships to the online world and to your devices can look like and should look like. You can teach kids how to assess the information that they're being bombarded by, all the things that we just learned about, all the misinformation, right? We can talk to them about that. We have more of an understanding of that than children do. We can push back gently on the conclusions that they're coming to based on what they're seeing. So instead of just saying, oh my gosh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, I can't believe you fell for that, which I want to say like multiple times a day to my children, I bite my tongue and I say, that's interesting. Where did you hear that? Why do you think that that's true, right? We have a dialogue about it. We're there to provide them with real world connection and with empathy for the fact that they have to navigate this really, really difficult landscape. The first step to that is being curious, allowing yourself to actually be open-minded and curious about what this world is. And some questions that you might ask are, what's your favorite app? How does that make you feel? Why do you like it, right? You might ask, what's trending right now? What's making you guys laugh? What's everybody saying? What's everybody watching? Tell me about it. Share it with me. Do you ever see content that makes you feel bad? What kind of content makes you feel bad, right? These are open questions that get your child or the child in your orbit to just think for themselves and think critically. Adult allies can create healthy limits for kids. Kids are not good at this. They don't know how to do it. And not only do they not know how, but they actually don't have the capacity yet to create healthy boundaries for themselves, but we can help them with that. And that really is our job, whether you're a parent, an educator, a grandparent, a coach, right? We can teach our kids where it's appropriate to have your tech and where it's not, where it's going to harm you and where it's not, right? And we ask them questions. What strategies can you use so that you can focus better on your homework? Can we agree on certain spaces where we're all going to put our tech away? This is how you're an ally to a young person. And lastly, I would say really important to check in on mental health. Again, this is not just for parents. Maybe you're an older sibling. Maybe you're a cousin, an uncle, an aunt, a coach. Everybody can do check-ins. How do you feel when you scroll on Instagram? Is there content that makes you feel better after? Is there content that makes you feel worse? What do you do about that, right? These types of questions get them thinking and let them know that we are there to help guide them through this. We're here in community, and I know, again, from talking to youth, they want community. They yearn for community. Yes, they like their devices, but given the choice, they will always, always opt for being in person with people. They just will. I've talked to so many kids. I mean, there's exceptions, but I would say overall, most kids want to be in community with people. Parents, grandparents, teachers, we also need community around this subject. This is not the kind of thing that you can really, handle by yourself. I'm sure many people here can attest to that. It is very hard to navigate alone, and it gets a lot easier when you navigate it with other people in the same circumstances as you. And that can mean even for yourself, right? I've spoken to young adults who themselves have a hard time getting off of social media or whatever. What's an easier way to do it? Find a community to do it with. Find some friends. What's an easier way to parent with screens? Find some other parents who want to talk about this, who also want to set healthy boundaries. Work together, work with your PTA, right? This is how we build community around this issue. So my call to action is to take the time to consider, what role do you have to play in the life of a young person who you know? How can you equip yourself to ask questions, to lead, to guide, to be curious, to help stand by their side and really be their ally? If you want more resources, more information about me, I have tons of resources on my website. You can just scan that and find everything there. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Wow, thank you, Julia, and thank you, Carlo. We had such great speakers tonight. I also want to thank everybody on the webinar. I might give you a chance to look at the room here. So if everyone wants to wave to the folks on the webinar, hello. We're really grateful for all of your participation as well. And glad that we were able to offer this virtual option, which is our first time offering a hybrid option for this event. So thank you to everyone on the webinar. I think we can close it out now. So thanks for tuning in. So now it is my job to break us into our dialogue groups. We're really excited. We've got just about a little under an hour to be in community together and talk about some of the themes that we learned tonight. So I would like to offer these dialogue groups as an opportunity for all of us to get out of our comfort zones a little bit. We're going to practice what we preach, and